Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 45 of Patch Notes, the Home Games podcast. I'm Joseph, joined by JC and Yazeed.
Hello.
Hello.
And I'm playing Date Master today. And today is the 23rd of August in the year 2020 at approximately 1 p.m.
This is true. It's a beautiful Sunday. It's a different crew this week, and we have topics this week. Our Fall Guys, Ghost of Tsushima, Rainbow Six Vegas 2, some home game stuff, some updates on the clicker game I've been working on with JC, as well as some kind of just general maintenance updates about the master branch of home games and the difficulties therein. And then our kind of main topic today is what makes a game good. Kind of an ongoing discussion, especially while we're making this clicker that certainly it should be good in the end of it. So that's kind of the general thing. Yeah, that's about it. What's up, guys?
Hi.
I disagree that it's a lovely Sunday today. It's too hot. I think
That's
2
true.
days ago, I think the high around me was 90 degrees, which was at 3 p.m., which meant the rest of the day was so nice. It was a really great day.
Yeah, the high being 90 is only okay or a nice day here in the end of August. The high of 90 is still uncomfortable. Last night when we were up till 2 playing video games, this room was 80 degrees, just hot, sweaty, gross.
Why is it so warm in that room?
Probably because I have the computer going and the door was closed, and it's just this thing of keeping
Oh,
all
it
of
gets
this.
a little stuffy.
Plus the roaring fire Joseph has in there.
Oh yeah, your fireplace is usually going, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a furnace in here, but I don't know. It's still nice outside as long as you just sit in front of the AC or a fan like everybody in Arizona.
Yeah, I don't go outside. Have you seen me?
Not. I have a question for you two. When was the last time you got caught in the rain?
What does it mean to be caught in the rain?
To be outside just bopping about and then rainstorm and you need to walk back to your house.
This is very specific,
Yeah,
walking back to the house.
Walk
or
away
running,
from my house.
bicycling.
What about driving?
I don't think, unless you were driving a convertible or a motorcycle, I don't know if it counts.
See,
basically, when was the last time you got soaked during a rainstorm?
I would say it's
Because
been
of the rain?
years.
That's
Yeah, I would say it's been years.
Okay.
Because we recently just moved back to Arizona, but this monsoon season has been not a thing. Typically monsoon is when you get those big rains, and then previously in Seattle it didn't really rain like that. It would just sprinkle kind of throughout the year. So it's probably been at least 5 years since I got caught in a real rainstorm.
Because the other day when I was on a walk with Dog, we got literally caught in the rain. We were about a mile away from home, and it started to rain hard. I could barely see in front of us hard. And she doesn't like getting wet. And so it was just this big immediate panic of do I take her under a tree? But that's probably a bad idea. So we just walked back in the end. We hoofed it back. And when we got back, I was dripping wet. She was until she did the little doggy shake, but then she was okay. But yeah, and then I had to towel dry her, which she didn't like, and required 20 minutes of chasing around the house, getting water everywhere, until I finally caught up to her enough to dry her off a bit.
So you hoofed it back, but she woofed it back.
nice.
Thank you. Yes. She does not very vocal, so she didn't actually woof, but yeah, she didn't enjoy the walk back. But she did enjoy being chased around the house. That was the fun part for her, apparently.
Yeah.
Did you try doing the doggy shake thing to get water off you?
No, I wear mostly athletic clothes when I'm gonna go on a walk with her, so they dry pretty quick. This t-shirt is an athletic t-shirt, and my shorts, underwear, socks, shoes, all that stuff is meant to dry pretty fast. So I was pretty much dry by the time I was done chasing around the house.
I miss big heavy Tucson rains. That was the thing that I was really looking forward to when I moved back. It was the summer of monsoon and having the smell of rain and the desert rain and all that kind of stuff. And this year has been not that, so it's been kind of disappointing.
Yeah, for people who don't know or haven't lived in Arizona, when it rains here, usually like it rains hard, like flash floods and like trees fall over and power lines go
People
down.
drown.
Yeah. People do, yeah. Because
Seriously, it's scary.
Yeah, because they try to like drive through the street. Like they'll wash cars away, and we won't find those people for a while, if ever.
Yeah.
Like it rains really, but it doesn't rain very often. Like we get all our rain like concentrated in like 2 months or something. But this year it's been super mellow, which has been kind of lame.
Yeah. What's up with you, JC?
Oh, like just in general.
Yeah, what's going on this
I
week?
mean, my Sunday. I'll start with the Sunday because it's a Sunday. I woke up and I made pancakes with the partner.
Nice.
Pancakes, bacon, and eggs, and then we watched Cutthroat Kitchen, and then I made extra for Alex. And then while we were watching Cutthroat Kitchen, at some point Alex came out of his room, went downstairs, grabbed all the food, went back upstairs and ate it. Cause when I went to go check on it, I lifted up the cover and everything was gone, and I was so surprised. He somehow like Splinter Cell agent went down there and grabbed everything.
Alex has a gift for taking all of the food that someone made and eating too much of it without you ever seeing him. It's a real talent.
The intent of the food was for him, but to know that he did it without anyone noticing scared me.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite Alex things in that similar kind of a vein is that one birthday where he just like dipped out at 2 a.m. because he had had enough of my birthday and he didn't tell anybody. That's just kind of his persona, you know?
He doesn't want to make a scene.
It's true. Yeah, I can respect
he doesn't
it.
want his presence known.
How long does it take you to make pancakes, JC?
I started like 2 days ago, so it probably took me like 5 minutes to make the batter.
So you make it from scratch, or do you make it like from a mix?
Yeah, just like a cup of flour and 1/4 of a teaspoon of all that other garbage.
I guess I'm asking because I also made breakfast this morning, and it took me like an hour and 15 minutes to make a bagel breakfast sandwich. And it happens every time. I don't know what I do wrong, but I do it wrong every time. It takes me so long to do anything.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's just you're going at your own pace. If you needed to, I bet you could crack it out, but I don't think you had a reason to.
Yeah, I don't know. It was just kind of this, like, I don't really plan for things in parallel. I do things in a sequence, and I don't really think ahead about stuff. Just in general, this is like a life thing. But in cooking specifically, I don't think ahead. And so, Synovia was very excited waiting for me to make these sandwiches that I've been talking about making for a while. And then, the hype kind of goes down and it gets a little weird. Like 45 minutes in, you're making a fucking bagel. You know what I mean?
I just started doing some jumping
did
jacks.
You make the bagel yourself?
No, I didn't do that.
What went into this bagel? I need to know.
So it was a bagel with cheese, bacon, and egg. That's it.
That took you for an hour?
I also made espresso while I was doing this. I made both of us mochas. So I guess I'm juggling a lot of things in the kitchen at once, but I also don't have a toaster. So I had to use the oven to make the bacon and make the bagels. And then we didn't have slices of cheese, so I had to cut off of a block of cheese, you see, and put that in the oven afterwards. Again, the bottleneck I think is the oven and not me at all. I'm perfect.
So you're an oven bacon kind of guy?
Yeah, for sure. I mess up bacon on the stove every time.
Okay.
I don't know how to do it.
Cold pan.
Yeah, there's like tricks and techniques, but I'd rather just put it in the oven and not have to worry about it.
Well,
because that's my thing. We can't really ask Yazeed about this.
Yazeed's our resident bacon expert.
Yeah, normally what I do is I just wait until it's 110 outside and find the nearest well-sunned rock and just throw it on there and just wait, 20 minutes, then good to go.
Yeah, and then I lay next to it and sun myself.
I feel like that's a really bad idea. But nice. Also, the last time I made breakfast, I made French toast. But I haven't made breakfast since then. I'm kind of lazy about making breakfast. My normal breakfast is just cereal and milk. I call it okay.
Yeah. It's nice. Specifically on Sundays, I like to make breakfast. It's just like today is my day. I can take time to do whatever. I can make espresso and kind of like soak in the day. Something about the sunlight on a Sunday is different, you know?
It hits.
It hits different. Yeah.
Just another morning for me.
Yeah.
Roll out of bed after being prodded by your dog. Like, all right, it's time to walk. Like, gosh, shoot, gotta get out, gotta change, gotta go on a walk.
Yeah.
I had to talk to neighbors because they like to talk to people.
We had a neighbor say hi to us a couple months ago, and that's, I think, the limit of our interaction with our neighbors. Even that was a little too much for me.
I know 5 neighbors by name, and I also now know that there's going to be a dog park in my neighborhood, so that's exciting.
That is exciting.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm semi-excited for it, but semi-not, because my dog still doesn't really interact with small dogs well. She interacts with, like, medium and large dogs fine, but little dogs, she's like, that's a rabbit. And I eat rabbits, so, you know. But also, Joseph and I were up until 2 o'clock in the morning this morning playing Rainbow Six and Fall Guys. And I think the world needs to know this, but Joseph and I have played Rainbow Six Vegas 2 many hours into the early morning over the years. But last night, Joseph legitimately like finished an entire realistic high-density terrorist hunt alone. Like, he killed everyone in there, and it was really impressive to watch. And the whole time, we were just talking about stupid stuff, so it's not like we were, like, really dialed in. It was incredible.
Yeah, I hit a zone at some point during that last one, and I didn't realize how much I was carrying us to victory until the end screen. But it was 32-0 for me, and you were 3-2.
Yeah.
So you got in there, didn't do great, and then I told you all these stories about different whatever stuff. And it's kind of that funny thing in Terrorist Hunt specifically, where you're just watching the enemy number tick down, and there's kind of tension is rising, and while I'm trying to tell anecdotes and jokes and try to keep it all whatever, on the inside I'm sweating, because if I fuck this up, we have to restart again, and we're like 3 hours into it. We played for like 4 hours last night. Fall Guys we played for like maybe an hour. I wasn't a huge fan.
We played way more than 4 hours last night. We started at 9:30 and we finished at 2 a.m.
We started Fall Guys at 9:30. We played for an hour.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, yeah. My bad.
Yeah, so we have done that a few times before, of just like, I don't know, time flies when you're playing Rainbow Six. That game is just something different. I don't like Siege at all. I think we talked about this on the show before, but Rainbow Six Vegas 2 just has something different about it, where you can play Terrorist Hunt over and over and over again. We did pistols only, by the way. You didn't mention that, I don't think.
Oh, yeah. We only ever do pistols only. We're sniper elite with those. Joseph is. I'm not.
real pros at the Rainbow Six stuff. We should probably consider going professional, stream professionally.
For that.
Yeah, it's a hot game. You know, it came out 12 years ago. There was one gentleman in there on a lobby that you saw who was not us playing.
He was holding it down. He was playing by himself in a lobby for 16 people, just playing terrorist hunts alone at 2 o'clock in the morning.
It could have been a normal time for him. We don't know. But yeah.
I don't know, because the other problem is that I don't know what servers these things run on, because that game is so old.
Yeah. Like, we were joking yesterday, because when you start up that game, it feels weird every time. Like, you don't know if it's going to start anymore. You know, there's some kind of Steam games where you're not really sure how it's going to work, because it came out in like 1997 and it's running through some DOS emulator. It's like, I have no idea. But this one specifically, you start it up and it's just fine. But then when you hit the online service stuff, it just says it's connecting to some online service, and I have no idea what that is, who's maintaining it, what I'm connecting to. But my username is also just straight up my email address, and I don't know why. I never remember putting that in. So in every public multiplayer game, it's my full email address is my name.
That seems bad.
It's kind of janky.
Yeah. I think my favorite part about last night was I found out that if you have VS Code open and you die and need to respawn, your game crashes. So once I closed VS Code, that stopped being a problem. But while it was open, I literally couldn't die or the game broke.
Do you think it was specifically VS Code, or just that it was taking up some CPU usage or whatever? And
I have a pretty high-end computer, so I don't want to assume that I was running low on CPU playing a 10-year-old game and having a text editor open, but it is what it is. There could have been. Yeah, I don't know. That game is so old, but like hilarious to play. There's also a bug in that game where if you're not the host and a terrorist gets killed while shooting their gun, you just hear the sound infinitely repeat everywhere on the map. You can't escape it. All you can do is mute the game at that point. It's some real good stuff. It's great. So I played for most last night on no sound from the game, which is an interesting experience.
We should get famous with this podcast, not for any other reason than to tweet at Ubisoft and convince them that they need to fix that bug. And then that'll be like our real proof of clout, you know?
You know what? There was a YouTube video a while ago on some guy who was like, there's this game. I don't even remember what game it is, but like they stopped selling it. And so he started a petition to get the game like resold by the publisher. And I think he succeeded, and that game is now available on Steam. We should do that with Rainbow Six Vegas 2. To like get that game back up and running and like have bugs fixed and stuff.
I think in a perfect world they would make another game like that with kind of some modern look really, and maybe some improvements overall, but keep the core gameplay. But they're doing so well with Siege, I don't think they'll ever make a game like Rainbow Six Vegas again, which is kind of a bummer.
Yeah. I mean, it is a bummer for us, but kind of nice for them because Siege is like a pretty popular game to play still.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Good for the corporation.
Yeah, good for this multi-million-dollar corporation. I mean, other than that, Justin and I also played Fall Guys together, and JC also played Fall Guys, so we can all give our opinions on Fall Guys. I like that game, but hate that game simultaneously.
Yeah, I guess I want to go after JC. JC, what do you think of Fall Guys?
I've only played it.
Your experience?
I've only played it like 5-6 games of it, but I've watched a lot. I think it's fun. It's charming. It's cute. It reminds me of, it's just like a constant Mario Party mini game.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's really a concept of balance for it, because it's supposed to be like a fun party game, but it's very funny to see how people are beginning to optimize and like really trying to win.
Do you personally go for the competitive stuff, or do you just kind of turn it on to have fun?
A bit of both. I have fun trying my best in a video game like that. But I don't think it hooks me enough to practice. I know Alex also played it. You know how literally an hour after you bought it, he leapt onto it.
Yeah.
He won 2 games already, and he was only playing it for like 2 hours maybe. So like, you don't have to practice. You don't have to be great at it. You just have to have like an idea of what to do.
Does Alex look at it as a competitive thing, or was he kind of just getting lucky while trying to mess around?
It's luck until it matters, or it's messing around until it matters, and then he's trying. Typically on the final stage, he's like really trying to win.
Yeah. When you happen to get far enough for it to matter. Yeah. You kind of start trying. I get that. I think that's what Yazeed and I were doing last night too. It was kind of just like and then by the third one, the start.
You stop talking.
Go away.
To each other.
Yes. I don't know. I think for me, I think it's all fun in games until after the team events are over, because the team events are so stupid in that game. Like the hoarding game, the egg game, team tail tag. I hate all of those.
I hate the egg game. I hate that soccer one too, or whatever, the soccer ball one.
Yeah, hoarders. Yeah. I don't like the team games in that game. I feel like that game is not meant to team up with the other people. Like Seesaw, I think, is the closest that game should come to teaming up with people. Because there's basically, if people don't know, there's like a level where all the platforms are seesaws, and so you have to like balance with the other people, or you can just completely like ruin their chances of winning by completely like unbalancing the seesaw and never rebalancing it. And that's fun, but like there's a game where you're supposed to like push giant soccer balls into your like team section as a team, and another one where you're supposed to like grab everyone's tails from the other team. I don't know. Like their game, I just don't think is
No.
great for those. Also, like the egg game, Joseph got really unfortunate, and we both lost, and I hate it. And I hate everything about that egg game.
I got to witness strangers cooperating in that soccer ball one because I watched blue team, like the red and yellow team had basically the lead and they started, being annoying and stopping the blue ball. But then I watched this group of blue people, like 6 of them, grab the yellow ball and shove it into a corner that the yellow team couldn't navigate around. So, like, I just witnessed 6 people who probably didn't know each other. At least 2 of them weren't part of that group, come together and bully like 2 people. I was like, wow. This is
The magic of the internet.
But I do hate like tail tag because nothing matters until the last like 2 seconds.
Yeah. Yep.
When
Tail
Yazeed,
tag. Sorry, go ahead.
Yazeed described the game to me last week, and the description was something along the lines of like your guy is kind of moving along everywhere and flopping, and you don't necessarily make that happen. Like you walk and he just kind of does stuff. And my question was, does that frustrate you because you don't really have control of the movement? And I guess it's still correct that that stuff doesn't really have an effect, the like little animation when you walk, but it's the way that the world and things kind of bump into you that takes away your control that made me really not like that game. Like, because it's fun when, like, the point of okay, so this might go into another thing later, but it's fun to win. And you want to do well. If you want to try hard and you want to whatever, you want to understand the game's mechanics and do well. But like in that soccer thing, for example, there's no finesse in the control for you to actually be able to effectively get the balls to your side. You can't grab them, you can't whatever, you just mush into stuff.
Ram your head into it.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, it's silly, but I can't care about this because I can't play this. I can't get better at this without doing weird physicsy, like weird stuff, that doesn't feel like I'm actually controlling, and it's kind of just timing in the world. So I don't know. My first impressions of that game were not awesome. Like, it was fun, but I wouldn't play it alone.
Oh yeah. You're
Yeah.
gonna boot up Fall Guys for a 2-hour session.
I mean, for me, most of the time, I don't play games with people. I don't like requiring other people to have fun playing a game. So, yeah, I'm looking for something most of the time that I can play alone and kind of get better at and have fun like that. And Fall Guys is just one of those things where, my family came over and my younger cousins need something to do. Oh, look at these cute jelly people.
Nice. Do you guys want to talk about home game stuff and then move on to the big topic?
Real quick, I just wanted to mention I started Ghost of Tsushima. I'm maybe 10-15 minutes into that, and I will not make any judgment on the game because I'm not even past like the tutorial yet. I will say I have been spoiled by PC gaming because the frame rate of Ghost of Tsushima actually is hard for me I can't get past it. It's I'm playing on a PS4 Pro, and if you have just a regular PS4, you don't have the option, but if you have a Pro, you do to favor higher resolution versus a higher frame rate. And the default is higher resolution, and it's running maybe 20 FPS on their like premium console. And so I was immediately disgusted, went to the menu and prayed that there was an option to do higher frame rate, and there was. And in my head, that's 60 FPS. Mm-hmm. What it is a more stable 30 FPS, and it still isn't stable. And I don't know, I don't know, but I can't get past that at the moment. So just wanted to kind of put that out there. Ghost of Tsushima seems cool, but I don't know if I can actually play it.
Wait, speaking of that, did you see the new Microsoft Flight Sim though?
Yes, I saw some of the stuff. I saw people were going to, like, the Epstein Island is like a big meme and all this other kind of stuff. But yeah, the game is...
Yeah, okay, so people who don't know, Microsoft came out with a new flight sim after like a while, and they have a 3D model of like basically the whole world. Like you can go anywhere in the world, and also with like realistic like conditions, like the lighting condition, weather condition, wind, all that stuff is like realistic, like real time weather and stuff. That game is apparently like crushing modern computers. Like even if you have a top of the line computer, you're unlikely to be able to run that in like ultra high settings and like at a consistent frame rate. Like you have to have like an absolute beast of a computer. I saw somebody call it like the new Crysis, but I don't know. I for people who don't know about Crysis, that was like the benchmark game for a while. But yeah, I don't know, man. That game looks pretty fun. I don't know. I'm not usually into flight sims, but I might get a joystick and try it out.
I would love that for you.
It's a cool thing. I think they use Bing Maps satellite data to and they like stream in the game as you play and that kind of stuff. You're not storing the entire world on your hard drive. But yeah, it's kind of amazing technology. I was telling me and Snowy were talking earlier this week, and I kind of used that as a reference of just like, you know, I guess these days it's hard for me to be impressed by video games or technology because it's just things look better and things just kind of generally improve in little iterations, and you know, you push hardware too far and it runs at 20 FPS, you get Ghost of Tsushima. And so it's like, what's impressive? What's the next thing? And something like Microsoft Flight Simulator is truly like a crazy, amazing thing. It also goes against my entire thing of being an internet prepper and not trusting the internet or technology or computers or anything. So you need to constantly be connected to their AP, like their thing to pull Bing map data. You know what I mean? But it's a cool thing. It's a very cool thing.
Yeah, you can find your house in that game. That's nuts. That's so cool. I don't know, man. I'm pretty stoked about it. I know my uncle's either playing it right now or will be playing it soon because he's super into flight sims. But yeah, I don't know. You bringing up the FPS stuff reminded me of that. Yeah. I don't know. I'm pretty hyped for it.
I know a guy with a actual pilot license, so maybe I'll ask him what he thinks about Microsoft Flight Simulator. Also, real quick, I'm pretty sure Young Thug got a pilot license. This is totally not on topic, but there's a video of him with a double cup of lean in a helicopter cockpit, and he's alongside, you would think, like a real pilot, but no, it's Gunna, like his friend. Anyway, whole thing. Young Thug got his helicopter license. Good for him.
Good.
There's a great video of him flying a helicopter.
Would you guys want to learn to fly either a helicopter or a plane?
It'd be a fun ability, but I don't think I would do it regularly.
I view it like I view skydiving, where I'm only going to do it if I've basically finished everything else in my life and I'm ready to die, because that's something that can take me out easily, and I don't want to have goals after that. You know what I mean?
No. I don't know what you mean. Skydiving is not low on my list. Like it's mid table on my list of things I'd like to do. Getting a pilot's license though seems like it would be more demanding. A boating license is and learning how to sail is higher on my list than learning how to fly is what I would say. I'd rather learn how to sail a boat and be seasick than learn how to fly a plane or a helicopter.
I don't know. It's one of those, like, I'm sure it's cool. I'm sure it's a great feeling. I've seen pictures of, like, literal children getting pilot's license. There was a kid on Reddit, like, 2 weeks ago who's like, I'm 16 and I'm flying this helicopter.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I guess it's not crazy hard then, but it's still just this terrible fear I have of just flying in general, especially me being in charge. Like, I get afraid of driving, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't fly.
Life is in your hands.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it would be kind of cool. Like I said, it's not super high on my list of things I would want to do, but I think it would be cool to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Maybe not a helicopter. I feel like those are more dangerous. Like an airplane.
Yes.
Like a propeller airplane, not like a jet. Like, you know.
Yeah.
An airplane that's not going to, like, launch me to the moon with a big rocket strapped to my back. Like, nah, like it's just, you know, it's got a spinny fan on the front, and for some reason that makes me go fast, and I like that. I don't know. I like stuff like that though. I think it'd be cool. I don't know if I have the focus and dedication required to go through all the license tests and like the hours in the simulation and the hours in the sky and stuff like that. I don't know. Like it's demanding, which I don't know if I can continue, like if I would want to do that.
Yeah, that's another thing too, is like, how do you fit that into your daily life? Like, how do you just casually get a pilot license if that's not your whole thing? If it's your whole thing, you probably are like 60 years old because you don't have to work anymore or whatever. You know, that's how I see it in my head, at least.
Why are you opposed to skydiving though? Because like I said, that's actually like not low on my list of things to do.
Dude, why would I not be opposed to skydiving? I don't trust. Like I just said, I'm afraid of cars. I'm afraid of driving. I'm not gonna jump out of a flying thing towards the ground and just hope that the parachute works.
Well, it's not just you the first few jumps, right? You have your jump.
But it just takes the one
person.
There's a bunch of stuff of like on the internet of tense, like sweaty palm moments or whatever, and you just see like, yeah, the hook was in like this, and if it was just an inch off, then the parachute wouldn't have worked or whatever, or oh, the parachute had a hole in it and the spare wouldn't deploy, and just any non-zero amount of horror stories. It's not even something I have to do. I'll go on the thing at the fair that just drops you. You know what I mean?
The mega drop.
Yeah, it's the same feeling, basically.
Maybe, I don't know. Falling out of an airplane though sounds pretty cool.
But you don't have to, I guess. A lot of things I'm sure would be cool, and humans could devise some sort of way to make you survive it. It's like, oh, put on this suit, light yourself on fire. It's really like a sauna in there. You relax. We don't worry, this suit's okay though. There's like a 1% chance it'll kind of mess up. It's like, I wouldn't do that either. It just sounds fucking stupid.
Would you ever do like base diving or base jumping where you have like the wingsuit?
No.
JC?
Probably not.
God, back me up here, one of you. Come on, higher
I'm not
adrenaline.
some kind of adrenaline junkie.
Physical demand. Come on, that'd be so much fun.
No.
You're like 2 inches from death at all times, but you make it out okay. That's the spice of life.
The most adrenaline I can take is posting a bad tweet and watching it go without likes for a couple minutes. Just being like, ooh, this is out there,
Sorry. I love stuff like that. I would do it. I think I'd have to learn how to do a bunch of other stuff before I could do like base jumping, but God, it'd be so much fun.
Yeah.
But anyway, on to home game stuff.
Yes,
so,
home game stuff.
Do you want to start with your stuff, or do you want me to start with mine?
How about you start?
Okay, so big number one for me in this week, I will 100% do it, is I need to look into Joseph's PRs, because Joseph's posted questions on there and I didn't get notified, so I've just never answered them. So I need to go through and like make sure I answer him and clarify where I need to clarify, or like redact where I need to redact. Other than that, I worked on the Who Tweeted That Tweet game. Most of the UI is pretty much done. The real two things I need to do still is create the secrets file, because I actually need to figure out how the token gets generated, so I can do that. And it's like I can put some notes to like how to do that, and then I need to finish the UI. And that game's pretty much done at that point, I think.
Nice.
Yeah, pretty exciting stuff. But once your stuff gets merged in, I need to convert it all to your new paradigm, and then we'll be good 2.0, I think.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I spent maybe 2-3 hours on Friday night thinking, okay, I can go through all these pull requests that are stale at this point, merge them in, and all this other kind of stuff. On Squish, I deployed a new version of all of my changes that I still have in PR. I posted a comment just to confirm that everything is good, because I updated based on your feedback. And so Squish, again, is kind of like the core of everything. So Squish has all these new updates. And Home Games Web and Home Games, the repos, are a absolute mess. I have my pretty branch of Home Games Web, which needs to be rebased on master. And if you try that, you get it's like a 19-step merge conflict. When you do it, like you get rebase master, and it's just like, holy shit, it tries every single thing and every one of them conflicts. It's just like you have to go and update a single file 19 times in a row. Anyway, it sucks. So I need to figure out a better way to rebase all that kind of stuff. This is just one of those painful Git moments where stuff just kind of changes on a core level twice, and both of these things need to come in and work well, and it's just really hard to resolve those conflicts. So that's true for Home Games Web and Home Games. So when I was working on the clicker and stuff yesterday, I just completely disabled the Home Games dashboard. I completely whatever, and I just launched the clicker directly for development and testing, because nothing else runs. Like, I'm just trying to have this game go. So yeah, I guess the clicker. But real quick, first I'll talk about another squisher change I have that's already on top of the pull request that's kind of approved, and it's just a simple change, very simple change to support multiple player IDs instead of the original player ID, just singular thing, and that's an example of actually a breaking change because we had player ID, and now if you just have player ID, it will not work anymore because it needs to be a list. So this kind of goes back to the need of versioning and how I have that whole kind of initial change to support that. So that was another thing we talked about a couple weeks ago, but of just allowing a game to say, I want the old version of Squish. And then I have another game that says, I want the new version of Squish. And home games can support all of them. So just that's kind of the update there. As far as Master, yeah, Master's a mess. Or at least my branch rebased on Master is a mess. I'm an idiot, and I am too comfortable on the command line sometimes. And I accidentally, I had a bunch of changes on my local branch. And I removed the .git folder by mistake. I just I don't know why, but I fully typed rmrf.git. It's just and then I realized afterwards how fucking severe that was because I had lost all of my everything.
Yeah,
right? My changes.
That's a lot, yeah.
And I was like, holy shit. Okay, what do I do? And then that's when I just kind of abandoned that entire thing because it was the middle of a rebase. My changes were just a rebase, right? It wasn't real mental work. It was just rebase shit.
Okay.
But holy shit, that was my adrenaline. You see what I mean? That's my extent of the kind of that I can get because anything else will kill me.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was that. And the last thing I just for home game stuff is that yesterday JC and I spent a few hours just kind of working on the clicker stuff, updating everything. I essentially rewrote it from the beginning, so now we have this whole multiple player ID thing. So we have the views of a state, kind of like what we've been talking about the past couple of weeks, but instead of duplicating one thing per person, it is thing exists and people can look at it. So rewrote that stuff from scratch and then added kind of the basics of upgrades. So having an automatic clicker and then a button to upgrade your attack power when you click, and then the kind of basic city view. So I also uploaded a video on our home games channel a couple hours ago about that. So I don't know. I think that'll be a fun one to track because it's not anywhere close to final. I literally don't even have an idea of what I'm going to do with half of the game, but it'll be fun, I think, to just kind of follow that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I think having a good, solid foundation makes building the game up a lot easier. So I think just watching you build that foundation will be valuable.
Yeah, and so JC, what is your? I guess you just you saw me do a lot of stuff, and I tried to explain things in a way that I guess is the way that things make sense in my head, but I kind of talk fast and I don't understand how other people think. So I guess just from your perspective.
It's a really calm way of saying I'm a little crazy. I don't understand how other people think.
In the moment.
Yeah. I'm a very, I don't know. But just what was your experience like, I guess, trying to learn the tools or see how the system works and stuff like that?
You did a good job of explaining everything at a higher level, what you were doing and why. It got harder for me to understand when you were getting in depth, why you were turning something into a function, but then you went and explained why you're doing this, why are you moving this here, and then that explanation made sense to me. Taking the attack stuff from just the little minion and making it something more universal so that everyone can use it. And it's that's cool. I liked all that stuff. But boy, you cracked out a lot of stuff in 3 or 4 hours. And I was what is happening? So much is being created in so little time.
I think it's a very, you kind of get into this flow of, I literally copy and paste the game every single time. I never write it from scratch because I don't remember how. So I copy the shortest one, which I think is the performance test. And then I rename the class, make sure it runs. And then and then it's just I gotta go from there.
Professionals, by the way.
Yes, yeah. Console logs all day. I don't know how to use debugger. So Yeah, I don't know. It was kind of just this process of doing that kind of stuff. But I think yesterday specifically, I had an idea of what I already wanted to build because it was a couple weeks before when you and I went kind of did the same thing, but I wrote it kind of from scratch and it was all super shitty. And that's when I hit the wall of realizing I needed to support multiple player IDs before I really got too deep into this thing of screwing myself over. So I'm flattered, but I also kind of already had an idea of what I needed to do. The code actually was pretty similar to the original version.
I will say that you tend to write code very, I would say in bursts from what I've seen when I've seen you write code is you will take pauses and then it'll just be like, bah, like hundreds of lines of code and then like a pause and then like a bunch of lines of code. But how many lines, do you know how many lines of code your clicker game is right now?
It's like 490, I think.
Nice. Yeah. I'm interested in tracking it because I want to see what the average length is because the Square game that I came out with
it's like 250.
is like, yeah, it's short. So yeah, it'd be nice to see.
I think one thing I realized is that a lot of the time in the clicker, I find myself writing things that feel like they should be utilities, that should be kind of generalized. And I guess I have trouble imagining what that is because in my head, I don't know what a game engine is supposed to do. Like, I don't know what the definition of that is. Like, if I buy a license for UE4, what do I get? Like, how much of a game is that engine and how much of it needs to be me? So I don't really have a good idea of what that's supposed to be. But in my head, Squish is the engine. But really, Squish is like a rendering, like a transmission and rendering thing. Not even a rendering thing. It's a transmission thing. It's just to compress your objects.
And it has some utils built into it, like shared utilities between the front and the back end.
Yeah, the ability to, for example, create a 2D array of coordinates that represent a rectangle is a util in Squish. So in my head, that is the engine. But I'm also kind of doing everything from scratch. Like, you really have this very raw set of tools. You have the network communication, you have the input, and you have rendering. But there might need to be something above that to make it actually easy to reuse components that are shared among things. Like, I want a canvas with a clickable button layout. I want a menu that has things kind of like the equivalent of an HTML or those frameworks that kind of just like you import some JavaScript thing and say, I want this layout. Yeah.
Material and React and stuff like that.
Well, not even the extensive React because like well, I guess it is because it's all the tree node stuff.
I think React is probably the most similar framework to what we've built. Just from like the tree structure, the like updating the tree, like all that stuff seems like problems that React has to solve as well.
But it's not, I guess beyond that, I don't know how it's similar to React because just the idea of a tree is not just a React thing. And they have a whole thing with like data flow and flux or whatever, Redux and whatever, all these things. I haven't written React in a long time. But there's this kind of assumption that like you are writing a UI and the problem is this data flow coming into your UI and needing things to update in that kind of a way. We don't have the same kind of data flow. We just have input and rendering over it's like over a network. I don't know. Part of me is kind of just like, well, we're so different, but I don't actually know. Yeah, but I guess that's all for home game stuff for me, at least. It's kind of this. Did you have anything you wanted to add, JC? Kind of like the quality of the thing that it is today, I guess. Like the game that we made or the kind of ideas and how they kind of flow into what the tools that we have are.
I mean, it's just so impressive what you guys have been doing. Like, I'll keep saying it. It's so cool to see, like, building something from true scratch seems like such a daunting task for any human being. But especially for me, I struggle with just the idea of building something on my own. So to watch you guys do it, it really makes you guys special.
Yeah, I feel so uncomfortable hearing somebody say nice stuff about me. I want to be the kind of dude who's just like, thanks, man. I really appreciate it because I do.
There, you just
At the
did
same
it.
time, I want to be like, I'm not good at what I do.
Yeah.
I want to tell you you're wrong, but I'm also
work
like
on loving
secretly
yourself.
happy about it.
Or like you get a text message with all the information, you can hit them with the LOL. You're just like, all right, don't have to think about that too much. You know?
Oh, sorry, I never got your text message. Haven't read it yet.
But because so far, I mean, I just spent yesterday like watching Joseph work and like his thought processes and what. I mean, he had a clear goal in mind, but to be able to enact it and to know what you want to do with things is so cool. And then learning about like the pains that you've had to go through, like refactoring, which looks like I want nothing to be a part of.
Yeah.
But like just learning it, like just knowing that something like Squish exists is crazy.
Well, thank you. That actually reminded me of one more thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yesterday, JC and I, when we were going through stuff, I had this realization that the view stuff was working in a way that I didn't expect it to, because the two views, right? You have the city and the clicker, and the default view is the clicker, and you can change it to the city, and each of them just have a list of player IDs that you're adding your player ID to and removing from.
Mm-hmm.
So I realized everything was working great. My menus that were all sub-children of the clicker were only showing up on the clicker, and I didn't have anything yet in the city view, right? So I was able to go from blue screen to red screen with all this stuff on it. I told JC that I don't think that this should be working, and I think if it is working, I don't know why, but it's really messing with me that this is working. And the reason I didn't think it should be working is because I know how Squish works, and every node is looked at individually in the entire thing. So the squisher sends the entire squished tree to every player. And so players will ignore individual nodes that they do not have access to, but they will still traverse the subtree of that node, or the subtrees of that node, right? Mm-hmm. So basically the whole thing was, if I'm not specifically setting the player view list, whatever, right? Like I said, it's a player ID in the city root or the clicker root. If I'm not setting that player ID on everything underneath it, basically traverse the entire tree and set the player IDs every time, I don't know why this view is working, because they're distinct. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get you.
So I realized then it's because I was instantiating the clicker root after the city root. So it just so happened that everything with it is a subtree of the clicker happened to render correctly on the red thing because it came second. If you don't have access to the clicker, you're just looking at the city thing and it's ignoring. I actually still don't know how it works. Okay. I don't know how it works. Something about the tree traversal is making it. Anyway, my takeaway is that I need to do the change where Squisher only sends data that people should see.
To.
So I did that change. I updated it so now instead of an entire squished array, it is a mapping of player ID to the data that they're supposed to receive. And it still needs to be in order because it's a tree, so it needs to do all the layering correctly. So it traverses the tree in order and then says, is this public? Is this invisible? Or is this some amount of players that can see it? If it's public, every single person in the player map gets this appended to their game frame, right? It's a public thing. Mm-hmm. But if it's invisible, we just skip it. So you can have it in your tree, but it's not currently visible, which is a new thing we couldn't support before. And then we also have, because it was either public or visible by one person.
Yeah.
Now, so it can be invisible. So anyway, that's what it was before. And then it'll look at each player ID in the list and then concatenate that to everybody in this thing. So we have this map, but it still doesn't have the ability to bypass the entire subtree. So I need to work on that part. So that way it could be just like, oh, this subtree is hidden from everybody else instead of just this node. So
Yes.
instead of saying this node I should ignore, it is this node and everything underneath it I should ignore for everybody who's not this person or these people.
Sorry. When we talked about doing this before. Did we decide that that would be more or less time intensive on the server? Because I thought that the reason we were iffy on that was that it might be slow on the server to have it render and sent out, as opposed to having this each client just figure out what it's supposed to show and not supposed to show. I mean, it seems like when we were sending it and they were doing it that way, something like data, like things were getting rendered that they shouldn't have been able to render. Is that correct? For what you were saying?
I don't remember. Things are being rendered because I don't explicitly set the player ID whitelist on every single node. In order to have a view, and you say that this view is for these people, I shouldn't have to say everything under this view is also visible to only these people. But that's how it works right now, because it looks at a per node basis, not a, okay, well, I remember that the tree above that and the tree above that. So it's essentially a limiting list every single time. If you have player 5 can only look at this thing, you can't have any other player underneath it. Or you can, but it wouldn't render. So yes, it does add time on the server because it has to break up the thing. But if you're running a reasonable computer, I don't know, whatever that means, and it adds 5% time for each time that thing is sent out, I think that's actually better than saving a little bit of time on the server and then hoping that the clients are all fast enough and all let them kind of handle the inability or inefficiency themselves. And there's a ton of network inefficiency the more that you have data that isn't for some people, because if I'm sending out everything to everybody and some players are hiding 90% of the data, I have all these huge things going across the socket that are mostly being ignored. So it seems like, the cost should be in the server and the work should be in the server, because that whole thing. And then, like I said, I need to do this fancy logic of when you're generating someone's squished thing, you have to remember the subtree, like the most, what's the word? The kind of most limited permissions of the people that can view what you're currently looking at. So kind of remembering all that kind of stuff, which sounds like I'll need a queue, a stack, data structures, something, but I'll have to figure that out. But that was just something that JC reminded me of.
Oh, right on. Nice. I think that I agree with you with what you just said. All right. You guys ready for the main course of this podcast?
Like an hour into it, the main course.
Yeah, the main course, man. Listen, you have your appetizer, you have your like beginner's entree, and then you have like your advanced entree, and this is the advanced entree, I think.
Okay.
So this is something Joseph and I have teased and wanted to talk about now for probably like since this podcast started. But
it's been a couple months.
Yeah, like, okay, what makes a game good to you? I'm gonna put that caveat into this one. To you. Because I don't want any generic, any game can be good nonsense. I want this to be specific to you. What makes a game good to you? And I also would like some clarification from Joseph. Is good a stand-in for fun in this case, or do you mean good as in like well built, like functioning well, or is it like all of that together?
Well, like I said last week, good means whatever it means to you.
Okay.
But my example last week, that there could be a game that is good but not fun.
Okay, and a game that can be fun but not good.
Yes, yeah.
All right, cool, fair enough. Okay, so
that's my opinion. Someone else, you could disagree with me, of course.
All right,
that's just how
so
I think.
I think that we should start with you, Joseph, and then we'll go alphabetically from there.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of an interesting question because it's very open, so I guess I don't know where to start. But I would say, generally speaking, a good game doesn't need to be visually impressive. Is kind of a big thing I've realized, is that you can have a good game that does not look a certain way. It doesn't look like a movie. It doesn't look like a realistic anything. It doesn't have like impressive visual fidelity. But I think on the other side of that, maybe because Ghost of Tsushima is very fresh in my mind, I would take 60 FPS over high resolution any day of the week. if they cut that resolution in half and it looked like big blocky bullshit pixels, but it ran smoothly, I would be happier. And so I think just a big thing is what it's not is graphical all the time. But on the other hand, that can contribute to a game that makes it better. So for example, Red Dead Redemption that I mentioned last week, Red Dead Redemption 2. I think that game is very good, mostly because it's so high quality. So like that word means that kind of. So like good, it's good. You know, it's a well-made thing, and it's a beautiful game, and it kind of sets this thing, and you can just kind of look at the scenery and be impressed by the art. But at times that game feels like it was made for you to look at the art and not meant for you to like have fun playing it, because it's not fun to play. Most of my time spent on that game was holding down the auto run button so it can pan out to these like beautiful vistas. Oh, look at the sunset. Oh, look at the sun. Like whatever, right? But like that's the game. So it's not fun, but it's a good game. I guess it's kind of like my starting thing. I don't want to keep just like rambling. Does anybody have a counterpoint or like a thing on that?
Well, let's go through everyone's first point, and then I actually have a couple questions that I hope will help you focus in on what you're trying to get to. Okay. So, JC, if you would like to give us your synopsis.
So a good game, games are meant to be entertaining. They're meant to like stimulate you in some way. So I think that comes from a lot of different angles. Like a game can have like great gameplay, or it can look good, or it has a great story. Games are art, stuff like that. So like I think if you look at a game as like a bunch of traits and you try to maximize different parts of it, that's the difficulty. Like a good game to me doesn't try to force its way into rounding out into everything. Like it can naturally do that. A game needs to naturally feel like everything's interconnected. Or it just does one of those things really well. Like I think that's what a game is, just there to entertain you, and it needs to do it in some way. Like, and that's the thing, like graphics and design and all that can be stimulating, but if it doesn't play well, maybe do something to cover that up. Stuff like that. And it's like anti-frustration features are also important. Like you never want a game to make you feel worse unless it's intention. Like if it's a story-driven thing, you can feel sad. You can experience the range of emotions, but you don't want to feel frustrated with mechanics of it. There was some game I was looking at that had like just disgusting graphics. Like it looked really bad, but it won all these awards and stuff because of how it leaned into its like gameplay and the environment it's setting up.
Could you give us an example of a game of like maybe like 2 or 3 games that you think are good in that regard?
Hades does well on the gameplay, and like it looks cool. I like fighting games, like I like Street Fighter, and that's because that is an entirely different, that goes into competition, and that is entertaining to me. And there's stuff like Terraria. Like I played Terraria for so long, and it's like a 2D pixely looking game, but it does what it does well. It keeps you in the flow state of enjoying it, and your brain's tingling.
That makes sense. Okay, so like I said, I'm gonna do my little synopsis, then I have a couple of questions that hopefully will help you guys kind of narrow stuff down and be less rambly for Joseph. So I think that the best game is Stellaris, and my argument for it being the best game is it hits like my criteria. So one of the big pieces of criteria for me is it needs to present you with a puzzle that you need to solve. So in Stellaris, it's you need to achieve galactic dominance or preeminence, right? It needs to give you multiple tools to try to do that. So in Stellaris, you have war, you have economy, and you have like politicking. And so you have 3 tools to try to do that. I think a game needs to start you at the same spot regardless of how many hours you've put into the game. So I don't want there to be explicit rewards for dumping your whole life into a game. I want those to be implicit, like skills and knowledge and stuff. And I think that it feels good. And I think that's not a very like scientific thing, but like I think it feels good to play that game. When I play that game, I'm thoroughly enjoying it no matter what, whether I'm winning, losing. Because like I've told Joseph, I think I've only actually beaten that game one time, and I've put like 400 or 500 hours into it. Like it's difficult, but I enjoy every like hour I've put into that game. So that's like my synopsis. And like if I was gonna say like what the best game is and what a good game should be, it's Stellaris. I think that's the best possible game. But I want to ask you guys about to rate 3 or 5. Give me like, okay, so I'm gonna give you 5 words or concepts, and then you're gonna rate them like 1 being the most like very important to the game, and 5 being less important to the game. So the first one is skill, progression, challenge. I'll just post this in the Discord when I'm done reading it off.
Put it in the Google Docs so we can all see it. Because I don't remember these.
Okay. Quality of gameplay and multiplayer.
Okay.
So
Skill,
you're gonna rate those as
challenge,
from very important in a good game to less important in a good game. Okay. And kind of like your reasoning as to why on that.
When you say skill, do you mean just like skill required to play it?
Maybe yes, you could say skill required to play it, or like as you play it, you develop skill. That's kind of like the way I was imagining it. Like the more hours you put into it, do you want a game that as you play it, you gain like more skill and understanding and knowledge about it? Like, so for example, Solitaire isn't really a game where the more hours you put into it, the more skill you have in the mechanics of the game. You just have more knowledge. So those, I'd consider that more like, I'd consider that a skill, but it's a different kind of skill. Or like a fighting game, right? Or like Gears of War. The more hours you put in that game, you gain like implicit skill. So I guess like skill is any implicit gains to playing a game, whereas progression is an explicit gain to playing the game for many hours, if that makes sense.
Challenge is kind of the opposition to skill.
Yeah, challenge would be the opposition to skill. So like how well does the game keep you like engaged or difficult? It's like in Solitaire, it's the randomness of the deck. In Pac-Man, it's the ghosts. In Gears of War, it's placing you against opponents of similar skill. Same for like League of Legends or for fighting games.
Okay. And then quality of gameplay, is that just is it like lack of jankiness? Is that
what I mean by that is like smoothness of play, like lack of jankiness, like few bugs, maybe either visual bugs, like actually like game breaking bugs. So like Earth Defense Force, the one that broke when I had the wrong processor, that's super poor quality of gameplay, right? But
I would think that's bad quality of game, because there's no gameplay to even be had. The game wouldn't.
Yeah, okay, bad quality of game maybe, but that ruins my ability to play the game until they fix that bug, right? So like I think that's what I mean by that. And then multiplayer means like either cooperative or competitive multiplayer.
Okay, and it's 1 to 5 for each, and we're just kind of going round robin.
Yeah, I mean you can just rate them like what do you think is the most important of these 5, and then like kind of like why you feel like those they're rated like that.
Okay, am I going?
Yeah, you can start.
I think skill is super important. I think the thing that I look for probably the most in a video game is my ability to be good at it. It's kind of like I was talking about before with Fall Guys. I don't like it because there's something out of my control that makes me bad at it.
Mm-hmm.
People just being in the same place as me ruins my experience in that game because the physics in that game suck. So skill is super important. I want to be able to finesse the movement of what I'm doing. I want to be able to do exactly what I need to do to get better at it. And like, for example, Geometry Wars is my favorite game ever because the game is pure skill. There is no progression in the sense like that nothing persists outside of this one thing. I'm playing the same 5-minute try for 400 hours, and that's my favorite thing. So I think skill is probably the most important. But to me, skill and challenge go hand in hand. Without challenge, you can't be skillful. Like you can't be really good at Papers, Please. Papers, Please is like a cinematic, like a game novel. It's barely a game. I don't know if you guys played Papers, Please, but the game there is essentially looking at passports and documentation for people coming across the border and comparing it to the real documents. And then there's the game there is like the moral choices to see the story. But you can't be good at that, really. You just do it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I think a challenge, I guess, is super important, but it goes very much with skill to me. You need a challenge to be able to be good at something. Otherwise, you're getting really good at something that's not actually asking you to be good at it. For quality of gameplay, I mean, there's a bar for sure of what's good enough and what's not. I would say that Earth Defense Force 2017. That's Alex screaming in the background.
Yeah, I gotta close my door.
Earth Defense Force 2017 is maybe in that gray area of, is this good enough for me to say it's good? Like, how much of this is intentional? The movement's blocky. It looks pretty bad. The frame rate goes really low at some points. You hit, like, the controls are strange. It's just a weird game, and I don't know how good it is. It's kind of hard to put that bar on it, but quality of gameplay is important, but I'm willing to accept something lower quality if it has other things. Progression is cool. I think that means a lot of things. Progression in like a sense that something persists and you can build on it as you go. I think it's kind of a different sense of like a story game where the progression is just seeing the rest of the story. Something like Last of Us 2, where the progression is just finishing the game. But Geometry Wars, there is no progression in the sense that nothing persists, but you progress throughout the single game, at least in the second one, because you get these score multipliers that add to your ability to get a better score. And the progression, it also gets harder as it goes. That's a different kind of progression. So I guess I'm ranking them. I'm saying skill, challenge, quality of gameplay, then progression, and I don't care about multiplayer. I don't need multiplayer in a game.
So then I have two questions for you, which is I'm going to just word it as one. Is Papers, Please and Earth Defense Force good? Are they good games? Even though, like you said, there's not really like skill or challenge to Papers, Please, and you rated those very highly.
So it's a case-by-case thing, because I think being able to call someone's like art, someone's product of work or whatever, good or bad is really hard, and you have to say it on a case-by-case thing. You can't say all shooters are bad, all RPGs are bad. For Papers, Please, I think it does exactly what it should be doing, which is what they wanted to do, right? It's like this kind of story about, it's like a political commentary. It's a whole thing. You have to be invested in kind of the goings on in the world and feel this kind of emotional investment into the problem in order to kind of see this game's take on this thing. And I don't, like, not to be harsh, I don't care about that game in a way that, like, I want to just have fun. I'm not looking for something like Papers, Please. I'm looking for something that is not serious and political, because the world is already too much. You know what I mean? Like, I'm looking for I've said it so many times on the thing, but like, turn my brain off and do something. So for me, Papers, Please is not a good game. There's barely a game there for me. I think the point of it is to tell a story in the very thin kind of veil of a game, in the sense that there's buttons you can click and menus and stuff. Earth Defense Force 2017 is not a good game. There's there's 53 levels and there's no tying connection between them. You know, you go into one level and then you finish it and it pulls you out into the menu and you hit the next level. And the game is very explicit about like beat every level on every difficulty. That's the point. And it's this very, it's like sterile feeling game. There's not a good wrapper around this thing. And it doesn't run great. It doesn't look great. It's cheesy, but that adds to it, I think. And it's also incredibly frustrating at times because there's the ants can just get you from 10 miles away, and if you're playing on insanity or whatever, your game is over no matter how much you invested in. Sometimes it feels like luck and not really skill of when you die in that game. But at the same time, I love Earth Defense Force 2017. You know?
Yeah, all right.
Okay.
JC, same ones. How would you rank them?
I'll just go by off like, because the hard part is sometimes games have different intent and it leans into one more of these subjects or one more of these fields than the other. But if I'm thinking of just like a game I'm enjoying right now, I really like a high quality of gameplay level. Like, I think that's it for me. Like, I'm not at a point where I'm frustrated with any of the game's features because of mechanics. I think that's important to me. Like, just a game that doesn't have bugs or doesn't feel clunky. And then like what Joseph said, skill and challenge are kind of intertwined. Like, I guess, well, because sometimes challenge doesn't have to like Baba is challenging, and you are kind of building a skill. You're building puzzle solving abilities. Your mind's opening, but I think those two are intertwined and they're important. Like, I would say they're next up for me, because that's what's entertaining is overcoming challenges or feeling like you're building your skill set. Like, people like to feel like they're improving at something or getting farther, which is like on to the next thing, progression. People like, it feels good to progress. It feels good like you're making milestones happen. You're achieving goals. But I don't think it's important for the game to have that built in as a mechanic. I feel like people will feel like they're progressing. Like, you're getting better at this in your game. It doesn't need to tell me. It doesn't need to give me some kind of like reward for my time investment. I can just feel it. And then, so like multiplayer at the end of it is like, that's hard for me to say because I like playing fighting games, and playing a fighting game against a robot isn't very fun to me. It doesn't feel like I'm not really building a skill set that I enjoy, and I don't feel like I'm progressing in a way that I like, and the challenge seems artificial. But what I think multiplayer is important if the game isn't like, the intent is to build upon like people's abilities to work together or to compete, then it's very important. But if it's like a game and then you have the ability, like they just tacked it on, then I don't think it's like, that's at the bottom. Like, doesn't care.
I see. Okay, I got you. So it sounds like both of you are not super high on multiplayer as being required.
Which I just realized is hilarious because home games is multiplayer. Like,
Yeah,
it's like that's the core.
Funny.
That's the
It is
intent.
kind of funny to
The
me.
intent is it's supposed to be multiplayer. You didn't build home games with the idea that I'm gonna sit here and do this alone.
Yeah, so I actually have a follow-up question on this then, right? So for both of you, I don't think Joseph explicitly said the word intent, but like both of you were talking about it, right? Like, how important is the game developer's intent in the game for you? Like, I guess, like, at what point do you say, like, okay, I see like what your intention for this game was, but it's still not good, as opposed to saying like, okay, like your intent, like the intention for this game, even though the game isn't like really good, I enjoy it because of what you're intending. Like, I get what you're intending, basically. Like, how do you rate? Like, basically, so for Papers, Please, it sounded like Joseph was saying, like, even though the intention was there and he could like understand and grasp the intention, he wouldn't say that was like a good game to him. Like, he didn't enjoy that game.
I think understanding the intention is cool, and I would also say often it's not even clear if you can really get that understanding from a game. Like, if I'm playing, I don't know, if I'm playing anything, and I think it is one thing. Here's an example. Spec Ops: The Line is a third-person shooter that has this kind of story that is very, it's making a statement on kind of the military and
Heart of
war.
Darkness.
Yeah, it's all this other kind of like, it's Heart of Darkness, the story, but it's through the thing of like Gears of War clone, and it's doing something that I don't like. It's doing this thing of it luring you in with a third-person shooter, and then 4 or 5 hours into the game, throughout the things of the story, the loading screens literally say, "This is all your fault." It's doing this statement, and I'm just like, bro, like if it's Gears of War and it turns into Papers, Please halfway through, and I see very clearly your intention, I can turn it off. Because I can see where you're going and like what you're trying to do, and in that case, I don't like it. But I can also just play a game and not even understand your intention. Like the first time I played Spec Ops: The Line, I was much younger and my attention span was much lower, so I didn't read the loading screens. I didn't care. I just played the Rudy Tooty game, and then it ended, and I didn't even think about it. So I never understood the intention, and I liked it more than I did the second time around when I kind of gave it more thought about what it was really trying to do. And the gameplay at the time was a little bit more dated as well, and all this kind of stuff that made me kind of think less of it. But I guess intention isn't super important unless it's obvious, and I don't like it.
Oh, okay, I got you. JC, kind of the same question for you then. What point do you say like I see what you're intending, but it's not for me?
Well, I think it's like like intent isn't so important at the beginning like of the game development, like because it's like it's the plan, it's the start. So if your intent is to tell this story and then you wrap a third person shooter around it, it's like, well, I don't know how great this is going to be. But like I think knowing intent or trying to understand intent is good to look at it more from a non-biased perspective, or to look at it more objectively instead of being like or taking your, I don't know, opinions into the game too much. But like I think it just helps form the base of the game. Like if you have a clear intent, it helps a solid foundation.
Oh, okay. All right. I got you. And then I have one more question for both of you then. So with progression, I guess like both of you have played Minecraft, Joseph less so. So I'm not sure. Maybe like Gears has a similar progression system, but what I was trying to get to progression was the idea of like Minecraft style progression, where each time you start the game, you're basically like starting over from scratch. You have to like progress through all this stuff over again. So for Minecraft, you start in just like a spot, and you have to get wood every time, and then stone, and then iron, and then up to diamond, and then whatever else comes after that in the newer patches. Versus like I guess like the older Call of Duties or League of Legends, where like for Call of Duty, the best shotgun, the model 1887, yes,
that was just Modern Warfare 2, but yeah,
okay, for Modern Warfare 2, sorry, Like to get the best shotgun, you have to put in the hours to get to the point where you get the best shotgun. Or for League of Legends, if you want the best champions, you got to put in the hours to get to the best champions. And that's not to say you can't like play the game without it, but like which of those two progression systems do you prefer? Like each time you start the game up for like a new game, you're just like all at the baseline versus like Call of Duty or League, where when you start up those games, it's like your hours put into the game give you an explicit advantage to people who haven't put in that many hours.
Well, I would think I would just generally disagree with the Modern Warfare 2 thing, because the 1887s were overpowered for a couple weeks and then they patched them because it was ruining the game. Because that kind of stuff in a multiplayer game specifically ruins the game. When you simply putting in more time, or the people's problem with pay to win stuff, right? If I have more money than you or more disposable money than you, I can just get better stuff in the game and beat you, and that stuff ruins a game. So I guess because I hate that so much, I would have to by default say the standalone different every single time, or the same every single time thing. But in a game like, I don't know, Infamous, or Crackdown, where the whole game is about progressing your character, and every time you play it, you are better because you collected more collectibles last time, so you're faster now, you're stronger now, you have more whatever stuff now. In a single player game like that, that's the point, is to become this like crazy overpowered thing. Or like in God of War, how they used to start off with you being super, like having all your upgrades, and then they would take them away from you. Because that's the point of the game. But in a multiplayer thing, yeah, I mean, putting in more time to be better, to have an advantage, I think is always a bad thing. If it's a natural advantage of you being better, like I can be better at chess than you because I've played it for 100 hours or 1,000 hours, but I'm no better off in chess than you are.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And JC. He did Prestige twice in his chess game, and that's why I'm a clown on him. Well, yeah, because like Minecraft is, that whole idea is like multiplayer shouldn't have what Joseph was saying. It like progression like that. Like it's entertaining to one person, but it can be frustrating for, whoever you're playing against or with. Which is why Minecraft is like that's a more single player game and not fighting others. So that makes sense to me. Like that kind of progression makes sense if it's cooperative or if it's just a single player game, then that kind of progression makes sense to me. But if it's put into like a multiplayer game, it can be frustrating to say that like just the mechanics of the game, just something built into the game is causing me to lose more, which is like why I think battle royale type games are getting we're getting traction, is because like everyone's on equal footing. The only thing that's limiting you is your knowledge and the skills you've built up. You just gotta have to, it's like be lucky and be good. That's all you need.
Yeah, that makes sense. So part of the reason I was asking those questions is we've ran into, with home games, basically there's like an upper band for how tight the gameplay can be, right, Joseph?
Yes.
Okay.
Just network limitations.
Yeah, with like network limitations and stuff like that. And the other side of it too is home games explicitly not supposed to have Call of Duty or League of Legends style progression, right? It's supposed to be like Minecraft style. Each time you start up home games, you start up your game, that's it, right? Like the game starts over each time, so you have to like play square from level 1 each time, right? Or so does that affect like how good of a game could be made with it, those two things, or those three things?
I think it's tricky too, because the only upper limit is kind of defined by us. We can always learn more and get better at what we're doing and do better work to make our stuff run better. There is no real upper limit there, which is kind of the crazy thing about programming and stuff. But I don't know. I don't know if we're limiting ourselves necessarily. We can certainly offer something like a progression in some sort of a greater thing of just something as simple playing more home games gets you cosmetics. Similar to Fall Guys progression. You don't get a better thing for playing more. You just look different. And people are like, oh, that guy's the hot dog. Yeah.
Want to be the hot dog.
Yeah, and we can support that for sure with, you know, a microservice and more added cost to our infrastructure bill every month. And it's possible. And I think it's not totally out of the question. We're not really bound by the technology and stuff. The only real limit that we have today without us like quitting our jobs and going full on like research scientist into the algorithms behind this stuff is the performance of the network stuff, because there's just limitations with Wi-Fi interference that changes the kind of consistency of your network connection when you're all over LAN or whatever. It's like I don't know anything about that stuff. So that's what's limiting us today. But I don't know if we as a concept are limited by that.
Right. But so yes, we could, as we invest more time into it, those problems would become smaller and smaller, right? But I meant more of like right now. Do you think that like those problems do affect like the upper end for how good a game can be on home games? I
don't think any games are good on home games.
I take offense to that.
Okay.
Fair enough.
No, I mean, you know, Square is technically a game. Yes. Like Question stuff is technically a game. It's the most basic form of a game. It's a card game. These things are technically games, but I don't think they're fun games, and I don't know if that's necessarily because of the system or because of us. Because I can make like yesterday I was freaking out because the clicker triggered the thing in my head that says that clickers are good. I was just like, oh, I'm clicking this thing and the numbers are going. But that's not a fun game. But I can do it in home games. And maybe someone has a better idea. Maybe someone has this ability to look at like, oh, you're able to support text and images and this and click interactions and keyboard input. Oh, here's this like amazing idea of a fun game, and we just don't know that. But I don't think the technology is limiting that person it so severely that they can't do anything. Of course, us not having the like direct connection to your brain and your game idea and just having it work perfectly, like that is ultimately, we're not there because we're limiting you from that because we don't have the technology. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But today, I don't think we're really limiting people from making something fun. I think us ourselves are maybe not. We're so focused on all these different things about kind of the guts of home games that maybe, at least for me personally, I'm not super concerned about making a fun video game myself, even though I would like to with the clicker and with some of the other things. But I want to make home games like really great as the guts. I want the guts to be great.
That makes sense. I guess for JC, since you really haven't worked that much with home games yet, so I won't phrase the question exactly the same. So instead, I'm going to put it like this. Right, the N64 has upper limits on terms of its like memory, its network usage. Like basically, like the N64 is an old computer trying to run. Do you think that limits like any aspect of what makes a game good? Like, would you point to any N64 game and say that this is a good game in comparison to modern games?
I mean, there's plenty of like N64 games that I think are great and entertaining. Like, Super Mario 64. It's amazing. And I think it just like, it chose a path and it did it well. It was like, this is going to be a platformer and it's gonna do it in a good way. It didn't need like multiplayer, it didn't need other features. It just tried to do a few things and it tried to do them well. And I think that's like all a limited system needs, is to like pick a few things that you want your game to be good with and then try to polish them. Because like the platforming from Mario 64 is still probably pretty good.
It is. That game continues to be fun. And there's like GoldenEye. I played GoldenEye last year. That game is, I mean, yes, it was running on a PC, but it wasn't limited by the technology. It was still fun because it was fun. We can't make GoldenEye in home games, but you know something. Also, what's your ranking, Yazeed? What's your?
That's a good question. For me, it's probably like skill challenge, quality of gameplay, progression, and multiplayer. If I had to guess.
You and I have the exact same ranking, and we're only different from JC because I think he did quality of gameplay first. So we all kind of right. JC, yours was quality of gameplay, then skill, challenge, progression, multiplayer.
I just want like a clean running game. I don't want to scream at my game because when I alt tab it breaks.
I think I've built up more of a tolerance to like a game not being like quality there, but it's still like enjoyable to me, if that makes sense. Like back in the day, Stellaris would crash or just horrific bugs would happen, and there wasn't really like a way around it. And I was kind of okay with it because I thought that the rest of the game worked fine. And like Minecraft looks so jank, and when you used to play it on multiplayer, sometimes you just get really bad lag because your host is dealing like, you know, something happened, there's really bad lag on it, or yeah, I don't know. I think to me like quality of gameplay is not as high, progression's not as high, multiplayer. I think I've been playing more multiplayer games, but I don't think that means that it's important to me in making a game good. So, like, for example, like Among Us is a fun game that I play with my friends. I wouldn't say it's a good game, though, right? The game is fun because of the people, and kind of like the same problem of, like, we've talked about a couple. Yeah, Sea of Thieves, I think, is like another good example of it. The game is fun because the people you're playing with we're like all being goofy, silly together. The game is quality is there, right? When you're steering that ship, it feels like you're steering a ship. When you're shooting at somebody, it feels like you're shooting at somebody. When you're in swordplay, it feels like swordplay. The skill is there in terms of like navigating the world, like being able to find the treasure and all that stuff. Like the progression is in my bounds, right? Like the progression is implicit in terms of skill. It's not explicit. You don't get a better gun from putting 100 hours or $100 into the game. The challenge is kind of where that game lacked, I think. So I have the same problem with like Among Us. Like the mechanics of Among Us aren't really there. So multiplayer is something I've like been playing a lot of, but really isn't that important to me. And for Stellaris, I don't think I've ever played it with more than myself.
I think you've tried.
Have I?
Yeah, because you were trying to figure out like how the time works, like because it's real time, right?
Yes,
you're trying to like someone was like trying to give you settings on how you should change it for multiplayer.
Maybe I don't remember ever playing it with another person, like playing it with another person. I've only ever played it against AI.
I think this is a little thing, but I think that the way you can tell a multiplayer game, like the game is good even, and multiplayer doesn't like detract from it or do anything, is like, would you play this with strangers and be happy with it? Because I can never imagine myself doing that with Among Us.
Yeah.
But like,
yeah,
Valorant, I'd play that with strangers.
Or Call of Duty or whatever, any kind of just big popular multiplayer thing.
Yeah, I mean, so that's kind of like my questions to help guide the conversation. That's kind of all I had in terms of like prepared stuff. So I don't know if you guys had anything else you wanted to talk about, throw out there, or discuss.
I guess I would just say I also used to be one of those people who said that mobile games were not necessarily real games. It's kind of like, what are you going to play on your phone that's better than Gears of War?
That's not real gamers.
Yeah, I was a real gamer a few, like maybe, I don't know, 10 years ago or so. And just wanted to kind of mention, I think one of my ideas of a perfect game or close to a perfect game is threes, which I don't know if you guys remember 2048 when we were in college. It was like a big thing. And that game was a shameless ripoff of threes, and it just used different units. So instead of the max being 6,000 whatever, it was 2048. It was just a different thing. I think it started with twos instead of threes. Literally, that's the thing. So that game was maybe a little bit different in terms of gameplay. It moved the entire board instead of just like one space at a time, and it was like some small difference. But Threes is a very simple game, which is just you combine the 1 cards and the 2 cards to create a 3, and then from 3 on, it only pairs with the same number, and it's a 4x4 grid, and you can play it with one hand, there's the obvious joke there, but I think that's actually really important in a mobile game. You should be able to play with one hand. And Threes is my go-to. Like, oh, I'm waiting in line somewhere. Oh, I'm at a doctor's office. Oh, I'm whatever. I'm just playing Threes. And I think that game is maybe one of my ideas of a, like I said, damn near perfect game. And so therefore, it's very good. It doesn't have multiplayer. It does not have progression beyond getting a high score. But it requires skill because you have to kind of learn the rules and all this kind of stuff. And the challenge is obviously if you don't learn the rules, the game is harder because you do worse because the board fills up and stuff like that. The quality of gameplay, like it's a very technically impressive game, and because it's so simple but it's so smooth consistently, I've never had a problem with it. And I would also say like Tetris is a perfect game. You know, Tetris is kind of like that, where it's all just about getting a better score and getting better at it. And when it gets harder, the challenge comes from you not being able to handle the speed because you don't know how to control the game and look at and analyze the board well enough to beat the game or to like get a certain score in the game or whatever. So I think for me personally, that like arcadey type score progression is what makes a game good to me. But there are other things that make a game good that I don't care about as much. Red Dead Redemption 2 is kind of thing. So I guess through example, I'm kind of trying to give my thing of what a good game is.
No, that makes sense. I actually wanted to bring something up about that. I was one of those like mobile games aren't real games for a long time, but basically up until last year when I went to BlizzCon with one of my friends, and he was really excited for Diablo. And I had gotten caught up in the like XD, you all have phones, don't you, like hate train on Blizzard. And then he was telling me like, you know, like he's not always home and he doesn't always have a computer to play Diablo with his wife, but being able to play that game, which is a game they both really enjoy, on mobile together, that's a really big deal for him. And that's when I realized like, oh, I get it. Like mobile games are games because they help you connect in the same way that a regular game can connect. JC, do you have any last points? Because I actually just thought of one more question I wanted to touch on. Sorry.
I mean, I think a game just needs to like pick a path and do it well, and that's what makes it like, don't force yourself to do whatever these other big AAA games are doing. Just like focus on something that you think is like entertaining to you, or something that you think is like intriguing, entertaining, and stimulating. And the only thing I like the reason I like fighting games so much is because this idea of like micro competitions, and it satisfies, I think humans are innately a little bit competitive, and it helps you deal with different things in that realm, which is why I'm such a big proponent of them. You learn to take a loss really well.
Or you just give up playing them entirely. One thing that I actually wanted to bring up was we talked more about video games as opposed to board games or like pen and paper games. But I know JC does play board games and pen and paper games, and I have as well. So I guess like, do you think there's a real difference in terms of like what makes a game good between those three? Like a traditional video game versus like a traditional pen and paper versus a traditional board game? And I don't mean like checkers.
I think
like that's like maybe like chess, yes, checkers probably no, but like a game.
I think board and pen and paper, like tabletop gaming is, I think, inherently has to be a little social in some way, because I don't know of many tabletop games that you're just doing solitaire. but I think tabletop has to have other people involved, either working together or competing or doing something. You have to be interacting. And then I think it relies more on people's competitiveness or people's cooperativeness, like people trying to help each other. Like in Pandemic, that game, it's like it's really just four people talking about, oh, what do we do, how do we handle this, I hope you're lucky and have good rolls. Luck's a big factor, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then in like more competitive settings, I think it's like just outsmarting people and trying to be creative in your victories or something. And then like pen and paper stuff like D&D, yeah, that's pure creativity. That's pure like, I'm gonna tell a story and you're gonna be an actor in it or something.
That makes sense. Joseph, I don't think you've ever played like D&D, but you have played board games, I assume, in your life.
Yes, and card games. Yeah, like JC said, they're all social things. Like I can't play, well, My Simple Mind, Candyland. You can't play Candyland by yourself unless you're just rolling dice and lucking against yourself.
And that's something too, is randomness, luckiness, gambling.
Yeah.
That tingles your brain.
Yeah. You can do a random number generator and say, if it's greater than 100, I win, and if it's less, then I lose, and just do it over and over and over again, and that's technically like some games. It's a game. But yeah, I think to be playing a game like that, you need other people, because a lot of the kind of fun comes in from that interaction with other people. It's like a game about lying to people isn't fun if you're by yourself. A game about knowing what someone will laugh at isn't fun if you're just by yourself. Like, you need people. Because I think a lot of the games, at least the ones that I've played, are meant to be as like party games, which are really just like conversation starters. It's just I don't know these people in this room. Someone's going to pull out some board game and start playing stuff so everybody in here can kind of mingle. It's really just so people can learn about each other, meet each other.
Do you think that those kind of elements should come into home games then, or no?
For sure. I mean, I don't want to control what people make. So I think anybody who wants to make a card game or board game like that should for sure do it. I mean, I think we should just provide the tools. Like I said, I'm concerned with the guts. I just want the tools to be able to support that, and Gears of War 7, when they eventually release it, they'll put it on home games as well.
How unbelievably stoked would you be if like that happened?
I don't know. I don't know how that would ever work, but if any kind of real game company that I actually respect and appreciate like that ever was like, hey, we want to do anything with your stuff, or if the guy who made Geometry Wars is like, hey, I want to make a game on your thing, I would die. I would actually die. So that's
very funny.
You just did it.
Damn it.
You just did.
Yeah, Joseph pointed out to me last night that we were ragging on people who don't laugh but say that's very funny, and I just did that.
You did it earlier too.
Oh no, I did.
Yes,
No way.
We should record this. Oh.
I've never done that before in my life. This is the first
I do
time
that
ever, truly.
That's kind of.
I know. Joseph and I both said that JC does it all the time.
You get a pass though, JC. You're a different kind of guy. It's unacceptable from Yazeed though.
It really is.
I demand a cackle from him.
All right. Do you guys have anything else on this topic or any other topic?
I do not, but that went like over an hour of just that part. So this is probably going to be our longest episode ever.
Hell yeah.
Also, I was wrong last week. I said that was our longest episode ever, or the other one was like 2:16 or something, but we do have one that was like 2:30, and that was, I think, our 10th episode.
Yeah,
or no. It was our 11th episode. It was the first one we did in person on after New Year's. I think it was in person. Anyway, it was the
Sorry, I'm not ignoring you. Joseph, can you take charge for a second? I got to deal with dog. Sorry.
Oh, dog. Yeah, so it's Song of the Week time. Right now the song is playing. And I think that's it. So JC has given us Songs of the Week for next week. Did you listen to the stuff that we sent you from last week?
Yeah.
So for some context, that was supposed to be Love Song of the Week. So Yazeed had both of his, and JC listened to them, and what did you think?
Generally like that kind of music, or at least those first, because you
gotta sit back, JC.
You gave me that James Young song, that song by Dodie, and then
Joseph had Gucci Mane.
And now I liked all three of these, and I didn't know the intent was to be love songs.
Yeah.
But now that I do, it stays the same. They all line up for it.
What, you saying Gucci Mane was a good love song?
Yeah.
Mate, listen, dude. Okay, look, I get it. The beat to that song really just sounds like something out of like a porn. It's like the perfect softcore porn music. All right.
I don't know what that is.
That was not a good love song.
Activist,
I know
you
the
are
defense
love.
is that Joseph is an animal and was like, I'm gonna approach this in an entirely different direction than Yazeed. But damn.
What about Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, We Done Fucked a Lot of Women is not a love song?
That song is a ride, though. I will say it's a fun song to listen to. But man, oh man.
So JC, what about the songs that Yazeed said? The James Young song, Stoned on You, and Dodie, Absolutely Smitten.
Oh, those are nice. Just sweet little songs. I mean, I didn't have time to really listen to the lyrics or like read the lyrics, but I was like, oh, aren't these just fluttering little songs? Gentle. Yeah, I mean, they're sweet songs.
I thought Absolutely Smitten was a sweet song. I would say too sweet. It sounded like a Honda Fit commercial, and I really didn't like it at all. It was the second I hear that like ukulele or whatever that is, I think of Hey Soul Sister by Train, and that shit just feels like it was made by a corporation, you know, where it's like we need a song that can fit in everything. If not the song, then just the instrumental. We need that ding, 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 and that's what I got from this song, and I didn't like it. I didn't like it very much.
You know what's very funny about that? I don't think Dodie is even signed to a record. I'm pretty sure she just writes and does all this on her own. So the fact that she has like a weird corporate sound to her, which I think is correct. What I said about that song going into it was it sounds like a high schooler's idea of falling in love.
It's very cute. It's a very like summery like type thing of just like you said, being in love or whatever. It was just too sweet for me.
Mm-hmm.
I actually liked Stoned on You a lot more, which I think is the inverse of what you thought I would do. You thought I would like the sweet one because it was more upbeat.
Yeah.
And they're kind of like the Stoned on You sounds like it's not quite as dark as I was expecting from your description, but I get what you mean. It kind of sounds like drugs in a very different way than Activist sounds. Activist sounds like you were literally like leaned out. This one sounds kind of like it's painting a picture of drugs, of not like about actual thing. Except he does actually reference codeine in the beginning of the song, which is what Activist is about too, which is funny. But I like the sound of it a lot more. It kind of had that drone out thing, which is actually what I said about the last week's song. But I enjoyed the drone out to this because it kind of really faded into the background, whereas the song last week's maintained a presence and it felt repetitive. So it's kind of like, I don't like this. But this one, I played it a couple of times and I liked it. So it's kind
Sun on You is one of probably in my top 10 songs ever. So
wow.
I'm happy that you liked it. I really do enjoy it. I think that the droning out part is correct. James Young is one of the few artists that I will say that he has one song that I actually will give like a musical critique on, that I think if he made one change it would be better. This is not that song, but because normally I'm an idiot around music and I don't know what I'm doing, so I don't usually comment on it. But
what's the song? Send your shots, let them know what's up.
It's Habits of My Heart. There's really long pauses in that song where I think if he just repeated the last phrase that the last verse that he said, like getting progressively quieter over that long pause, that song would be like 100 times better than it actually is.
You don't like space in music. You don't like Like it's weird because I say your stuff is sparse, but anytime that the song just breathes, and not like in the sound, but in kind of like what it was compared to what it's doing right now. Like you don't like shifts from one sound to another in a song,
No,
because
I
that
don't.
space in
Yeah.
between is a transition.
I like a continuous like experience.
Yeah.
Which is kind of true about me as a person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not like a highs and lows kind of guy. I'm like a, like just a flat line. Hopefully it's aimed up, or and not aimed down. But that's kind of like, that's like my goal.
like Freebird. You like Freebird? It takes like 4 minutes to start.
I've
I
never
love
listened to the
that
entirety
song.
of Freebird.
You've really never heard? Okay.
I've never heard the entirety of Freebird. I've
Oh.
definitely heard parts to it. But I've never sat down and been like, I'm gonna listen to Freebird.
Well, I don't sit down to listen to music that often. There's usually something else I'm doing.
Yeah.
Well, I think one of them is the song's name is Hit It From the Back.
Oh, your text
hit the
here is
back.
hit the back.
Yeah.
Is it?
Now that one is, the title is kind of obvious to the intent.
By King Princess.
Yeah.
What kind of genre is that? If you Joe and I are like, we don't like the word genre, but what kind of genre would you say that is? Like really broad strokes.
Yeah. General vibe of the music.
Yeah.
Poppy, but
Okay.
soft.
Soft poppy. That's what they called me in high school.
That's kind of like what I vibe to. All right.
And then, did you have the specific name? Oh, Final Fall. That's the name of the Fall Guys song.
Yeah, it's like, I think that's the one that plays when you're in the last round. And it's like, oh, the tensions are high.
Was that
Does
the one I was laughing at, Yazeed? How the
No,
music-
you were laughing at the one that was on Seesaw.
Okay. Yeah, the music felt too intense for me at times, and that it was funny because it's like kind
It's
of
a bunch
casual.
of
laid
orb
back.
men.
Yeah, and it was
Blobbing
just like
around.
dun 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 dun. It's like, nah, dude.
I don't know anything about the soundtrack to that game. I turn off music when I play it. Joseph?
Yeah, so my song of the week is actually funny because it could have been my song of the week or should have been my song of the week last week, because it's actually a love song. And it's not a song about drugs. It's a song about, I think, a person. It's an album that came out earlier this year by Fiona Apple. I think the album is called Fetch the Bolt Cutters. The song is I Want You to Love Me. It's the intro song. I actually heard that song for the first time while playing Earth Defense Force, the most recent one. And something about that game with this song like clicked together, and it, I don't know why. I mean, it's a very, very there's a lot of progression in this song, and there's different interesting parts. Like her voice is very interesting. She does weird things with it. Her singing gets like this oomph throughout it. It's like everything I like in a lot of modern hip hop, actually, about kind of changing energy and just vibiness coursing through it. There's a lot of that in this song, but it's very, very pretty, and it's about love and or wanting love, right? Wanting to be loved or whatever. And it's like
This is not. Sorry, go ahead.
I don't know.
This is not the first Fiona Apple song you've recommended.
I think I recommended this song the first time too, because I like this song the most out of her album, and I think you listened to some of her songs and you probably heard this one.
Maybe, I don't know. I'm interested in giving it another shot because I don't dislike Fiona Apple.
Yeah.
She's like very similar to the music I listen to, but again, I think it's like what you said about like heavy changes in songs. I'm not super into.
It's so what's the word I'm looking for? It just kind of happens naturally, and it isn't something where the song finishes, something small happens and another song happens type thing. It is like, compare the intro piano to the sounds that her mouth is making at the end of the song, and you're just like, what the fuck happened? Like somewhere in here all this changed, but you can't point to where.
Nice. I'm excited to listen to it then. I'll pay attention to the progression and see if I can pick out what you're talking about then.
Yeah.
My song of the week is actually Do You Remember by Jared James and Rowry.
Rowry.
Rowry, which is very like that's a great name
Like
to
Maori.
feel in your mouth. But that song is very static in comparison to your progression song. So I don't know how you're gonna like it, but I enjoy the song. And I really would like you to listen to the Mediocre Rap Battle.
Oh, I listened to it.
Hmm?
I listened to it.
Oh, okay. Then listen. You don't have to listen to it again. But what did you think about it?
I couldn't finish it.
No. Okay.
I was cringing out of my pants within a minute, dude.
I was gonna say it's a little hard sometimes.
It is a little cringy.
Especially because, okay, putting aside the kind of look of every single person in the video and the kind of energy that they're bringing and the kind of just all that kind of stuff, I don't know the subject matter. So they're talking about like, oh, I'm in the lane. It's like, bro, what? Like, I don't play this shit. And so it's just seeing like the literal corniest people on earth doing this when they like say something about how you can't play League. It's just like, Jesus, I can't watch this.
I think to some extent it's supposed to be like that, but
it's like
that is so funny. It's like it's a fun thing for me to listen to because I actually know all the stuff they're talking about.
Yeah.
And some of the bars that they drop in that one are like vicious almost. Like at the other, like the actual players, they're kind of mean sometimes. It's funny.
I guess like I didn't pick up on a lot. I mean, I seriously just made it to a minute in, and you know, I guess if I wanted to kind of give it praise, it sounds like they tried. Like it sounds like they really did try to make a rap song, and even though they call it mediocre rap battle, which that like going in kind of timid is the opposite of the energy of hip hop. But they did try to do something over it, and it sounds like they mixed it well and all that kind of stuff. But like, holy shit, I fucking hated this song.
I don't think you're really supposed to like it. The reason I was asking that because the person who wrote it had like a day, and he wrote the whole thing in a day by himself, and he's actually formerly a SoundCloud rapper. So I was just curious if you actually thought he did a good job or not. I have no idea. I just enjoy it because it's funny to me. Also because like all the leagues are coming into the close their seasons, like all the big games are happening, and they're talking about like the big four teams in Europe, which is big fun for me.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, technically it was a rap song. You know, there were flows that were delivered on beat. I'm sure you could put up a metronome and it doesn't go off of it or whatever. Pretty good. You know, maybe not for me.
Fair enough. No, I don't think it's really supposed to be good. They like put that whole thing together in like 3 days or something like that, including like editing. So
it reminds me of like the epic rap battles of history.
That's
just
what I was gonna say.
Yeah, I'm sure this is maybe entertaining for the people who want to hear the content, but holy fuck, I can't listen to this.
Yeah, I was like, damn, if this was like high school or middle school, maybe I would have enjoyed this. Because right now, I am afraid.
That's fair enough. Yeah, like I said,
It's like people like genuinely enjoying Weird Al. Sometimes it's like parody stuff can only go so far. You remember
Weird Al?
White?
Yeah,
Isn't Weird Al like considered good though?
Yeah,
yes.
But like you remember White and Nerdy?
Yeah, I was gonna say, can you imagine playing White and Nerdy in your car right now as a 26-year-old man?
No. I actually forgot about that song until you said it right now.
Yeah. Do you see me strolling? Like that shit is so corny, but that's the point. But I mean, it's not.
It's
you
like,
can't
it's
really
well
listen to it.
produced, and it's like okay, Weird Al.
Yeah.
Right on. Anything else for Song of the Week?
Activist is a love song, and it's the best love song of all time.
That song really does have an energy to it, I will say. I do agree when you said it's like super leaned out almost.
Yeah.
I get that vibe after you said it.
I've never had lean in my life, by the way. My mom once, I had a sore throat. I had a horrible strep throat or something horrible. And my mom, they like told me I needed a prescription for this cough syrup, and she wouldn't let me have it because she's always been so afraid of me becoming like Gucci Man or whatever, I guess. I don't know. But I've never tried it. But I imagine this is what that feels like to the fullest extent.
Now, you've been calling him Gucci Man. Is that his actual name? Because what's the E doing at the end then?
It's like, I can't say Gucci Mane. It's so, you know what I mean? You can't just say Gucci Mane.
Feel right in your mouth, does it?
Yeah. I would equate it to accurately pronouncing Spanish words in the middle of an English sentence. Like, don't try that. You know what I mean?
Can you give me an example?
oh yeah, like I was walking through the puerta the other day. It's just like, bro, what? Like, you mean the door? You mean the puerta? Like, just say it English. You don't have to mix it in with your
when you
rolled
order
R's and stuff.
at like you don't like. Do you go to a little Mexican restaurant or do you go to a taqueria?
Yeah, you can say okay. I guess that's different because I don't say taqueria. Actually, I do. I do say taqueria, but it's like taqueria, taqueria, or like a panderia for a bakery.
Pandaria.
Pandaria. I don't know. I guess it's just like you have to be talking in a way because he's from Atlanta. There's like a certain slang and kind of a style of speaking. So you say Gucci Mane. It's like a weird. It's like I was saying Maine last week about hustle and flow. It's just like that's a thing. But I do not say Maine, so it's Gucci Man. But it's like people just say Gucci because it's awkward to say Gucci anything. Gucci Mane. Scoochie. Anyway, the song's great.
It's not a bad song. I was just, when I listened to it, I was like, I understand that why Joseph gave me such a disclaimer at the top of the the top of the song.
Yeah, the love is a little more abstract.
You guys ready to move on to the rapid fire question?
Yes.
All right, so I'm gonna read this one off, which is not something I normally do, so hopefully I can do that. If you had to make a scary game where the main enemy was something people weren't usually afraid of, what would it be?
The game as a whole or just the enemy?
I get kind of like the vibe of the game. So like, the Slender Man game, the Slender Man is what you're supposed to be afraid of.
I would say so like an example is how in Ghostbusters they took a Marshmallow Man and made him the villain.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of something in that same kind of a vein. Like, what's a creative thing to make scary?
Yeah, what's something people aren't afraid of, like clowns?
I was just gonna say clowns too, especially because your shirt, JC.
Clowns are horrific. I don't know what you guys are talking about. I'm very afraid of clowns.
What's scary about them?
I'm trying to make some
Everything.
some sort of idea that actually makes sense. Because my initial thinking when you say something that people aren't afraid of, my brain immediately went to like failure. Like, you know what I mean? Like some stupid bullshit like that. Like people are afraid of failure. But I don't actually want to do that kind of a dumb abstract thing. I want to do something more in the vein of Marshmallow Guy. I don't know. You know, there's that movie. It's about a giant rolling tire that just rolls through like society and murders everybody in its way. And I think that is a great idea of like really dumb. Take a thing that no one is afraid of and make it.
Can I tell you what the Leprechaun movie was? What made me think of this? Because no one is normally afraid of leprechauns, but you're supposed to be. But even the leprechaun himself is not that. He's like so silly and goofy. It's like almost borderline comedy.
I would make mine about rabbits.
That's good.
There's
You can do
something
a lot of
unnerving about their eyes. Prey animal eyes scare me. So big or a horse, like a scary horse game. Oh yeah, mine would be a horse game.
I want to play your scary horse game. That's the title. Scary horse game.
Imagine like that jump scare as you look down a dark hallway and there's nothing there, and you look back and there's just a horse. Like, how'd that horse get there?
But yeah, that's all I had for stuff.
That is all I had as well. JC?
I'm happy that you guys let me on.
Thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, JC. Do you want to take us out, or do you want me to take us out?
Talking to me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'll do it. That's going to do it for us. Thank you for listening. As always, our music is done by our friend Tynan. He is Nytan on Bandcamp, Nytan. You can find us on homegames.io. We're also on Twitter at homegames.io. Send us questions, feedback, literally whatever. Check out our new video that we did on the city game, city clicker thing, or anything else we have on our YouTube channel. And thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye. I love you.
Bye. What?